What is up, you guys? I have been wanting to make this video for, I don't know, like a month or so, and I figured what better day to make it than the anniversary of my episode of Lucky 13. And this creator, Kofie, made a video. This was not even the original title of the video. It was not originally titled Shaq Game Show Hosting Era Didn't Go as Planned. He named it Shaq's Game Show Was an Absolute Disaster. Very pointed. And I'm going to basically react to his video and point out some things I don't think Kofie has. I'm just going to be honest. I don't think he has a decent understanding of how game shows work. The ins and outs of what goes into the development of these, the production, and all that. I'm just be honest. He didn't do his research. He did some. There's a lot of things he missed, and I hope to point them out. I appreciate him bringing attention to the show because I don't think it got enough love, and there are reasons for that. So I do appreciate that, but I thought. Yeah, let's dive right into it.
I'm through with standing in line to clubs I'll never get in. It's like the bottom of the ninth, and I'm never gonna win. This life hasn't turned out quite the way I want it to be. If you're new here, welcome in, and if you know me, welcome back. And if you're asking what I just said earlier, if you don't know who Nickelback is, oh boy, anyway. You don't have to know anything about basketball to know who Shaq is. I'm sure that you have a family member that goes, oh yeah, the guy who owns Papa John's. Oh yeah, the guy from that General commercial. And then you have that one weirdo in your family that goes, oh yeah, from Kazam. Shaq is always doing something, whether it's DJing, forgetting players that play for the Detroit Pistons, or hating on Rudy Gobert. He is never idle. Which is why I found it very weird that Shaq started co-hosting
Yeah, that was the first commercial. Look, that's Gina. No mention of Gina. And there's a reason why he doesn't mention Gina. We're going to get to that later.
New game show, and no one that I know ever brought it up or talked about it. The show was called Lucky 13, where it was Shaq and Gina Rodriguez, former star of Jane the Virgin, and former...
Sorry, I was wrong. He does mention her. But... there's a reason he does not include her in the title. I should be more specific.
Of a scandal where she's saying along to the N-word to a rap song on Instagram. Doesn't have to do the game show, but that will always be the first thing it comes to.
2019. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to defend that. It's totally defenseless. But there you go. That's why she's not getting any mention in the title, according to Kofie.
To my mind, I mean, that video wasn't even leaked, I think. She uploaded that herself. Anyway, I'll explain the premise of the game.
13 questions are all that stand between tonight's contestants and up to $1 million.
This is Lucky 13.
You have 13 lucky potential contestants on stage.
Wrong. Absolutely wrong. This is totally untrue. If you did your homework, the 12 there's two contestants. There's two contestants. So me and my co-contestant Darren were sitting, and that would leave 11 other people that were paid actors, and one or two of them were alternates. So if I couldn't play or Darren couldn't play, they would have taken our spot. They're not contestants. It's not deception or anything. I mean, the executive producers came out that we had debriefed, and they said, hey, this is how it's going to work. And so, yeah, paid actors.
A few will be chosen to answer 13 true or false questions. After the round...
Also, minor thing, they're not questions. As you can see, they're statements. New Year's Eve is a federal holiday. That is a statement. None of these are questions. Even this one, when it has when, like, could that be a question? It says when it is 6 a.m. in India, it is 6 a.m. That is still a statement.
They'll be able to change one of the answers if they want. And the amount of questions that they get right will tell them how much money that they win. or could win, because the contestants afterwards have to predict how many they got right. Before we continue this video, I really want to thank everyone that has liked, followed, subscribed, shared these.
All right, we're gonna skip this.
I think that starting with the pilot wouldn't have been fair, and I wanted to see if Shaq and Gina had gotten into a rhythm of some sort by now.
It's kind of funny that he picked actually the episode that in terms of when it was filmed, I believe this was the last episode to be filmed. So good on him. I mean, there's no way he would actually know that unless he contacted Hans or me. He picked Hans' episode. You can see Hans over here, who's very jovial. I'm happy for Hans that he picked Hans' episode, but I think if he dug a little deeper and looked at other episodes, he could have picked an episode that showcased the chemistry between Shaq and Gina. A lot of people didn't think that they really jived well together, but the star of the show is the contestant. I mean, that goes for Jeopardy too. A lot of game shows where it's really not the host. Yes, obviously, so many people. I adore Alex. I watch the show for Alex, and these are some of the exceptions. But Alex really tried to make the fact that it was about the contestants and not about the host. It is the contestant and the clues that you watch Jeopardy.
I know it's only 4 episodes, but I feel like you start to get your feet on the ground with these kinds of things. So to start the show, Shaq and Gina introduce the show, and the first point of suspense is who the first contestant is going to be.
Again, this is no suspense. Hans knows he's going to be selected. He knows for certain that he's going to be selected as the first contestant. I'm going to post a video and my little mic that they mic me up on, it says contestant number 2. I knew for sure that Darren was going to play first and I was going to go after her. So he knows he's going to be selected. So it's all kind of fake, his reaction.
And then they pick a guy named Hans.
Playing tonight's first game is Hans van Walter.
So Hans comes up and talks a little bit about themselves, and they do an interview about what he does for fun and what he plans to do with all the money that he's going to win.
What do you plan to do with the money should you win?
I'm planning on having the biggest Lucky 13 party ever with all the puns. So I'm gonna do Clucky 13, like a bucket of fried chicken, a Jane the Virgin margarita.
And I'll give Hans a lot of props because he has way more energy on this game show than Gina and Shaq combined. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, we get to the actual game part of the game, which is Shaq asks.
That's just Hans in general. Hans is just a very bubbly guy. I've met him. I played in a trivia team with him. He's a great guy. That's just who he intrinsically, I think, is as a person. I don't think you're seeing a real caricature of him. Some people try and ham it up and emote and do all these things. No, Hans is just the perfect game show contestant, and that's why he's been on so many he's been casted on so many game shows. He really, he makes for great television, and I have no qualms about my episode not being shown, but I'm just the complaints that he has about the show, if he watched every single episode, there would be times where you'll see.
Asking true or false questions.
Not
Kofie
questions,
Ledecky
statements.
swam in the 2012 and 2016 Olympics while she was a teenager. True or false?
I feel like that probably sounds about right for her age. So I am going to say true.
The main thing that gets me is that there are 3 people on stage, but during this stage, Gina has nothing to do or say for minutes at a time.
For anaphylactic shock.
But Kofie, dude, my dude, because Shaq is this is part of the show that you have to understand. So Shaq reads the statements. You're asked if you want to change the Pepsi challenge, and then Gina reveals whether you got them right or wrong. So I'm not sure. Do you expect them to trade off reading each statement? I mean, I guess that's one thing that they could have done, but I think that's such a minor grievance. I don't know.
The epi actually stands for epinephrine, so this is false.
And this part of the show is the guest just basically talking stuff out loud while Shaq.
Yeah, that's the point. It's the star of the show is Hans, right? We had the debriefing with production. Production says we want you to talk out the answers. We want you to explain why you think the answer is a certain way. We want, and Jeopardy doesn't do that. Jeopardy is it's just rapid fire. You're in the trenches and you're just giving the right answer. There's no explanation for it. Maybe Ken does a little deliberation. He says, oh, so such and such, he'll provide a little flourish and explain more information. But they don't want you to do that on Jeopardy. There's certain rules and history to the game, and you just rapid fire. You're just getting the response. Here it's a little different. And it's kind of like the kind of millionaire-esque in that sense, where you get to talk about your thought process. So that's why it's different.
And Gina just stare at them.
So the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, that's the big.
They were told to do that by production. It's we want to know why Hans thinks that this statement is true or false and how he knows it. We don't want someone who's just up there and just says, oh, well, I don't know the answer, so I'm going to guess such and such. Talk us through it. We want an inside scoop into what you're thinking.
V, that's in Washington, D.C., and I know her name was Maya Lin. I'm pretty sure that it was for a contest, so I'm going to say true. Okay, so
fun fact, she actually I think she got like a B- or something on that contest. She went to Yale, I believe. So yeah, that's a fun little fact about that. And then same thing would happen with the United States flag. Was designed, I think, by Bob Haft, I believe, and he got like a C or something, and then they changed it to an A posthumously or later once they approved it as a flag. But
black truffle, I think that those are like the mushrooms that the what am I thinking? Oh, the pigs they go digging for.
And while I know that Shaq and Gina can't help him out, they just feel awkward standing up there. Another thing here is that for a majority of the show, Shaq's face does not give off game show host whatsoever. It gives off super serious. We have the guest.
I mean, let's be real. The dude is there to collect his check. Like, he does all these sponsorship deals. Like, I love Shaq. I love meeting the guy and everything. But, bro, like, just call it for what it is. He's there to collect a check. Like, to put his name on something. Like, you're watching the show because of Shaq, right? And I know that. You know that. Like, Shaq's a big name, right? So, he's there to collect a check,
telling more jokes than the hosts, and the guest is doing great here.
It's his name from its creator, Doris Epstein. True or false?
Well, I am a doctor. Yay.
Kevin Bacon wrote a vegan cookbook. True or false?
That would be the definition of irony, I suppose.
Fun fact, it's not a fun fact. This was the only statement that would have tripped me up in Hans's stack. I actually, because I know Kevin is such a health nut, like, the dude is in great shape. I thought that would have been true, and I would have gotten it wrong. If Hans and I played together, oh man, we would have gotten a million, because I knew the one statement that he ended up getting incorrect.
Also, there doesn't seem to be a time limit, so the show is actually basically the guests talking to themselves.
congrats. You have successfully figured out that there was no time limit. However, it was edited down a lot. So some of Hans's explanations were edited down. I know mine in my episode were diluted way down to where it was just me literally just saying, I think this is false. I think this is true. And me not even giving a rationale for it when in fact I had a rationale for every single one of them, pretty much. Yeah.
Or at least this part of the show where they're trying to figure out what the answer is. It's just the guests talking out loud to themselves. This feels like I'm watching someone take part of an SAT test or something. And this wouldn't be so bad. This segment wouldn't be so bad if it didn't last for 5.5 minutes. 5.5 minutes to answer 13 true or false questions. Also, by the way, this show is an hour long, so 42 minutes of showtime, plus commercials, of course. So yeah, this segment lasted 5.5 minutes. And after the round, it's time for Pepsi Play, where the player can change an answer if they want.
Oh, and that sound means it's time for Pepsi Play. Woo!
Your 13 questions along with your answers are up on the board. Is there one you wish you could take back? Well, thanks to Pepsi, thank you, Pepsi, you now have a chance to refresh one of your answers.
Hans decides not to, and now we have the point of the show where they can predict how many questions they got right. I like this part where you could predict the range. I would change the prize values, but that's just a nitpick.
Okay. I agree. Kofie, I'm in complete agreement with you. Would you have gone up? I think a lot of people, some people that I've worked on other game shows, they said that it was just, such a paltry sum, 100,000 compared to the $1 million. I think we should have gotten more money. Yeah, and I'm sure Kofie would probably agree, but he doesn't really elaborate on that.
It's a really fun play on the 50-50 probability of the true-false question, which I like. Another thing I like about this show is that this show is not emphasizing that you must know everything, but you must know what you know. You see what I'm saying? Now the first...
Yeah. No, and that's really... if you look, maybe I'll pull it up later. Adrian Wolf, the showrunner, someone was complaining about the show and how someone deserved more money because they got like 10 questions, but they said that the range was they didn't get their range. And he clapped back and he's like, look, like we're in the business of rewarding people for knowledge, for what they know. We don't pay people for guessing. If you are over predicting and you say you got 13 when you got only 11 to 12, then you, by virtue of you picking, I think I'm doing a poor job of explaining this, but essentially is if you are unsure of something, you are inherently guessing on something. Therefore, you did not know that fact, so you do not earn money for that. You ought not to be credited money for that response because you didn't know it. You guessed.
First guest, Hans, guesses in the 10 to 12 range, which has the potential for $100,000. In addition to that, he also has a chance to pick a lucky number, which if he gets the answer exactly right, he gets an extra $25,000. He goes with 11. And now it's time to just go over the answers. The 13 U.S. states begin with a vowel, he says.
Yeah, so this one, I think they totally edited down Hans's explanation. And there was a funny moment with Shaq where Shaq was like, come on. I forget what he said to Hans, but he like kind of pressured him. And I thought that was a funny moment. And of course, Kofie doesn't talk about it at all. And Hans took his time, and that's exactly what you should do. And he named them all. He named every single state that begins with a vowel to make sure he was right. And this is one thing that I will say with Hans. So when I sat down with the producers, they told me that that the way that they're going to reveal the answers is going to be the most dramatic fashion possible. I do not believe that was held to for Hans's case. And never mind the fact that like he totally deserves whatever he got, because like he knew a bunch of things, but they didn't, like, their end of the bargain was like, hey, we're gonna present these in the most dramatic fashion possible. But like, look, you'll see how
false and gets them correct. Actually, I'm not going to go through all these questions, but I will say that some of these questions are actually hard. I learned...
Dude, of course they are. You think they're going to give away $1 million? Like, bro, come on. Like, you watch Jeopardy. There's hard questions in there, too. Like, if there's Mickey Mouse questions, no one's going to watch it. That's boring. I think it is. I mean, I know some people might watch it.
That Agatha Christie was a surfer?
Interesting how he picks the one question that Hans gets wrong. Yeah, this is the one I knew. It was a former Jeopardy clue. Yeah.
Anyway, we have...
So some insider information. So when I went to a Jeopardy taping, Allison Betts, TOC alum, great person. She told me that she hosted trivia at O'Brien's, and it was pretty recent, right around the time that we were going to film Lucky 13. And she said that she had that as an actual question, but Hans wasn't there for it. Dude, he could have won $1 million.
We have another commercial break mid-reveal of the answers. For those of you keeping score at home, that's 2 commercial breaks during a reveal for one contestant's results out of the 13 seated on stage, and we're already a third of the way into the episode. During Hans's round, there was a Kevin Bacon question.
Okay, so I should go up. So they revealed, 4 or 5 questions, and they revealed that he already got one wrong. I think that's... So I'll tell you why I can speculate. I think I have a fair handle on why they did what they did. Okay, so for my episode, they revealed that I got 11 right before they showed the ones that I got wrong. So at that point in time, I thought I got every single... In my mind, I was like, uh-oh, like I might have gotten all 13. They don't... It's Hans. Hans is a seasoned trivia player. You think he's gonna miss? He's gonna miss 4 trivia questions for their statements? No, there's no chance. So here's why I think they did what they did. Up until that point, when I filmed, the highest someone had won was $50,000. I won $125,000. And no one had won the 100,000. There was a bunch of people. There were a bunch of people that went for the 100,000, but they overpredict. A lot of them overpredicted, right? They predicted that they got in the 10 to 12, but they only got 9 right. So I think it looks just horrible for a show where you only have one person winning a decent amount of money. So I think they really wanted to have someone who have won 100,000, especially on an episode that features Kevin Bacon. So I think they had the budget, and they're just like, let's give it to Hans. And he, again, absolutely deserves it. Hans 100% deserves 100,000, at least 100,000, for his knowledge.
And out comes Kevin Bacon to confirm the answer, which is something that I did not expect.
I wonder if he's too busy to give us the answer. Kevin Bacon, could you please join us?
Yes, so I knew that Kevin was going to be coming out because Kevin is listed as an executive producer for the show. And when they were hyping the show up, they had Kevin Bacon, in a suit and a tie, and I'm like, okay, he's definitely going to make a guest appearance. And even on the photos, you can see him, I knew for a fact.
And now I'm listening to Kevin Bacon talking about the pigs that he owns.
Yes, because of my pigs, June and Johnny, I had to stop.
Yeah.
My wife still eats pig.
and then he leaves. That might be the funniest cameo you could have ever possibly had. Like, I could have gone to the fridge for a snack and missed that entire exchange. It's that quick. The Kevin Bacon cameo sounded fun, but while I was editing, I did notice at the end that he is an executive producer of the
Okay, so he clears it up. Dude, it's so funny. Yeah.
show. So while it didn't make it any less exciting, it did kind of take away from the spontaneity of it all, where it's like, of course you would show up on a show you executive produce. We're still going over the answers, and at around question 9, Shaq presses a button to trigger an offer.
Maya Lynn.
Wait.
What?
Yeah, so as a contestant, you knew the offer was coming because they would bring out the button with the column attached to it, so you knew it was coming.
Oh, cowboy.
If Hans takes the offer, the game ends, and Shaq pitches out $27,000.
Yeah, it's just the real sad part is I was offered 40K. Is I think they also offered this makes no sense, like what he was offered. They offered someone who got less questions right than him more money. They offered her like 32 or something. And so I think it was this is just ridiculously low. So I think they really wanted to convince him to go for the higher offer.
And Hans respectfully declines because he's doing very well in this game. As someone that didn't have this part explained to him, I had no idea that was coming. This also happened like 2 minutes right after the Kevin Bacon cameo. So it was a lot was happening. But at the same time, nothing was happening. Anyway, all right, with one more answer to win $100,000. And honestly, make him the host because he's bringing way more energy to the show than these two. While he doesn't get 11 exactly right, he does get 12. Everyone congratulates him and he goes home with $100,000. And I said, yeah, that's awesome. But we are 23 minutes into the episode, so we have to pick at least one more person. So next up is Stephanie, who grew up with a pet raccoon. She also brought her boyfriend, who was mic'd up in the audience. I'm going to let that one slide. They probably did it after. Well, they probably knew she would. Okay, it wasn't a random draw. They knew that she was going to get picked, so I'm going to let that one.
I love how, like, we're halfway through this video, and he's just now realizing how game shows work and like how it's like, bro, like, yeah, of course they knew she was gonna be a contestant. It's
that one's a nitpick. It doesn't matter. Anyway,
it's not a nitpick, bro. Like, she's a contestant. She brought along her +1. They mic up the +1. Like, I don't understand what your complaint is. Like, it's not a if you're being on a game show, you should be allowed to bring your loved one and they should be a part of it. I have no qualms about it. Are you like upset that I mean, like, she introduced him too, so you know that he's, you know, who did you bring with? And so I guess Hans didn't bring anyone. I brought my best friend, so one of my best friends.
Yeah. We roll off the questions, and there isn't anything as interesting as when Hans went, because this is a more chill contestant, doesn't have as much energy as Hans. And when the contestant isn't exuding all of this energy, the game really feels slow. They ask her about Ice Spice, who she totally knows who that is.
First name of rapper Ice Spice is Cinnamon. True or false?
I feel like that is just really out there. False.
She's also never seen Star Trek, which is unfortunate for her because that question pops up. She has a choice to change the question.
Thank you, Pepsi.
And then we go to a commercial break. Stephanie predicts that her lucky range is 7 to 9 correct for $25,000, and then has her lucky number be 7. That's my lucky number. She just like me for real. She gets the first one wrong out the gate. At 4 questions, she has 2 right, and at 6 questions, she has 3 right. On question 7, Shaq offers her $3,750.
I'm pretty sure that is the lowest that they can offer. That is a very, very low offer. I'm almost certain it's the lowest offer that they can do. So it's not a good sight to see when you're getting offered that low of money to walk away.
And with how the round is going, I'm not mad at that. But she rejects the offer. And she should have taken it, because now we're 9 questions in, and she's...
Again, the reason that they offered her that little amount of money is because she didn't know... Frankly, she just didn't know anything. Like, she didn't know enough to deserve an amount of money that reflects what she knew. She knew 37.50 of it, right? So
only gotten 3 of them correct. She gets a question about Amelia Earhart correct, but the last question she gets wrong. And even though she loses, they have to keep going because we are playing along at home. And it turns out that she only got 4 out of 13 right. And that's the show. That's everything. I know we only had 2 contestants here, but yeah, that was somehow 42 minutes of showtime. So now that I've recapped an episode really quickly, let me review the show and where I think it goes wrong. First of all, the pacing for this is horrendous.
Yeah, I actually agree with Kofie here. They can move quicker, and I think it was just kind of a trial concept, and they were just kind of prove that, hey, this is our concept of the show, and I'm sure if it got picked up again, it got canceled, but they would move a lot quicker with things.
This is one of the slowest paced game shows I've ever seen. I know that Shaq played in 2000's NBA, but dude, are we being serious, man? Are we being for it? I counted up the minutes of gameplay. In this game show, there are about 11 minutes of answering questions. That's it. It is a 42-minute show. The rest of the show is basically Gina and Shaq being so robotic. That's its own section. Once again, I'm getting ahead of myself. The show feels both flat and bloated at the same time. Like, there doesn't really seem to be a time limit to the game, so you just spend a lot of time seeing the contestants debate whether something is true or false. I could go to the DMV right now and watch people try to take their driving test, and I would get that same feeling. That probably is even more exciting. There's more at stake over there. Another fun thing about this is that there are 13 people on the stage, and only 2 of them get a chance to participate in the game.
That's showbiz, baby. I mean, if you did your research and you looked at the Reddit, we talked about, I revealed on Reddit how this thing works. You would know. I mean, it's paid actors. It's just part of the deal. They all got paid to be there, so...
Also, Hans left, so that means that 14 people graced the stage. Only 2 of them got to actually play. And I understand there's a whole 13 theme in this game, but this feels unnecessary. This is already a weird game show set. It's devoid of color and personality, and on top of that, you have 12 strangers who we never meet have to pretend to be happy for the person actually playing the game that they really wanted to play. I know that I was sitting at home and I was happy.
Again, they didn't, maybe 10 of them, there was like an alternate maybe, but they didn't want to play. Bro, what? They're paid actors. They're not going to get many right.
Happy for Hans, but if I was sitting in one of those chairs, I'd be like, respectfully, I don't know you. If you're not going to pick me, can I go back to the audience? Another thing that really bothered me about this game show is that they spend more time reviewing the questions than actually answering them. They are true-false questions, man. This should not take that long. I think another weakness of the show, which it didn't really register until I was editing the footage for this, is that this show takes a really, really long time giving you the satisfaction of if you're right or not. For example, let's say in Deal or No Deal, you pick 4K.
Oh my God, a show that's the pinnacle of human knowledge. Like, the complete brain rot. I'm sorry, Deal or No Deal is complete brain rot. It's like you're picking a case. There's no skill involved. If we're gonna compare it to that, I mean, we're comparing a show that has actual trivia in it. And let's see this.
You immediately know what's in those 4 cases, and that helps with the step-by-step excitement of it all, being like, oh, this might be an actual special
I
episode.
think, though, the Deal or No inspired the offer component. I did ask Adrian. I didn't directly ask him whether it inspired it, but I said, hey, this combines the elements of Deal and No Deal. I hope America likes it. And, his response was, oh, I certainly hope they feel the same way as well.
So this person's getting really, really close to hitting that high mark and getting a really high offer from the dealer. Now imagine if in Deal or No Deal you picked 6 cases and you didn't know what those 6 cases were like 5 minutes later, because they would just spend so much time going one by one to each case and do it all at the same time. And that's why it felt to me like this game show felt more like an...
This is not a fair comparison. Deal or No Deal, like, we're not... He's trying to make the point that, oh, you get instant satisfaction because you know the case, but that we're comparing trivia stuff, so you actually get to hear their rationale. There's no rationale for picking a number other than like, oh, that's a lucky number for me. Oh, my dad's birthday, my mom's birthday, that's our anniversary, or a number like that. Just 2 completely separate shows.
Online quiz than an actual game show. Like, I can't imagine you going through 5 clues in Jeopardy and then revealing the correct questions like minutes later. It's possible in Lucky 13 for you to answer a true-false question and then have to go through 2 commercial breaks before you get the answer to that question. And I just think that that's not good game show design. If there's potential that the audience could also lose track of what's being answered.
So interesting, because now he brings up audience participation. When I was filming, they had like little remotes or something, and they said that they were going to use that. They never implemented that whatsoever.
That's not good. These shows are supposed to be easy to digest. I'm not saying that every game in game show history has to be fast money from Family Feud. I'm just saying that you could have sped this game up a bit. Lucky 13 could have been a half-hour show. I feel like if this was a half-hour show and it was like a little bit...
Yeah, so again, if, Kofie, I would recommend the show Perfection, because I think that's where they got the concept of the show. That's a UK-produced show, and it features true-false statements, and there's some elements that are a little different, but I believe it's a 30-minute show, and it's much more fast-paced than this. But the money is not so great. It's a lot lower than what's offered here, as is typical for American versus UK shows. So, something to consider.
Faster paced, you had a time limit for each question. That would be such a better paced show. But instead, for 3/4 of the game show, there was no game, and there was barely a show. You can lower the difficulty of the questions, but make people go faster. I think we'd be getting somewhere, but it just doesn't materialize into anything entertaining. I'm sorry. One of the worst things a game show can be is boring. The next part of this is that Gina and Shaq do not radiate game show host energy at all.
Welcome to Lucky 13 in Las Vegas, where we're not the only game in town, but we're definitely the most exciting.
You don't believe me?
I'm trying to rack my brain around how many game shows I know that have 2 co-hosts that share a stage. And I'm not talking about like Pat Sajak and Vanna White, because they each have their own job. They each have their own job, right? That's understood. Shaq and Gina just like stand there and take turns being game show hosts. And it's kind of unsettling. It's kind of off-putting. They also rarely talk to each other, which is fine because it's not about them, but it kind of is.
What? Bro, no. All right, let's hear them out.
It is about them when they are positioned 6 feet from each other most of the time. I would have either put one of them off stage. So
Okay, no, dude. I gotta stop you. No, you're absolutely wrong. It's not about them. It's about the contestant. That's why they let Hans cook. That's why they let him talk without interruption, because they didn't want to distract him from what he was thinking and influence him in any sort of way. That's Jeopardy. Alex has said it. The star of the show is the contestant.
they would have been forced to make conversation with each other and like throw it to the crowd. But no, it's just a weird vibe when there are two hosts and one contestant. It often feels like neither of them know when to talk, when to tell a joke, and just let it rock. The chemistry is not there. And I know that it's only 4 episodes in, but it just really felt like these two did not know each other at all. Another thing that is off about this show is Shaq's demeanor. For what's supposed to be a fun game show, it feels and looks like Shaq just watched the Sharp.
Guys, you know what? Okay, so I'm gonna point. I don't know. I'm just realizing this now. His the racist comment about Gina thing. He totally re-edited this video. Because that was actually I believe that was actually towards the end of it, and then he put it in the beginning. I think I'm just realizing that now. Okay.
Charlotte Hornets playing against the Washington Wizards on national TV.
I have no words.
Please give it up for Hans.
I'll be right back.
And for a game show to be seen as fun, you have to make it look like it's going to be fun. And Shaq doesn't do that. I get that Shaq is 53, but he's provided us with some funny moments for years on Inside the NBA. So my idea would be to replace Gina with Charles Barkley.
Got 2 words for you. Steve Nash and Chris Paul. Must-see TV.
That's more than 2 words.
You didn't say 2 words. You said quick to the point.
You just said I got 2 words.
Giving Shaq someone he's known for years would have probably made this game go over better and make it one where if you insist on the slow pace of a game show, we could have had it still be funny. Especially because I was watching the show and I don't think Shaq or Chuck know the answers to most of these questions. Gina's joke delivery is pretty dry in my opinion. It might not be for me, but that's just my opinion. There's just not enough game. There's also not enough show. I know I've said this before in the video, but I really need to bring that home. If it were up to me, I would change the format a little, and I'd mix it up. Watching 11 minutes of true-false questions is just not it. Give me some multiple choice. Give me some memory. Give me some...
I mean, Kofie right now is just literally proving he does not understand game shows. Give me multiple choice. Dude, that's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. If you want to see multiple choice, go watch Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. They have to differentiate themselves from Millionaire. And this is the guy, Adrian Wolf. If you did your research, this is the guy who was one of the development for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. He wanted to make it different than that, so he made it true false. And again, I don't want to hear these complaints. Like, you don't understand. You really don't understand how game shows work, dude. Like, let's be real. And how you want to make yourself unique and differentiate yourself from every other player, because they can't do that. It would just be Who Wants to Be a Millionaire if they made it multiple choice.
Some matching, anagrams, anything. Try a little bit harder to trip up the contestants. Or this could have been a trivia battle versus Shaq or something. Make Shaq either an ally or an enemy. If you're going to have 2 people co-host this, make one of them be either an obstacle or a friend. It's not a surprise that this version of Lucky 13 got canceled, but it is a surprise that this show was popular.
I love how we're literally a minute and a half from the video, and this was just a gigantic scandal amongst the game show universe, and now he's finally saying oh yeah, none of us actually got paid until a year after we filmed.
The show was reportedly ABC's most watched summer series premiere, which I feel like a lot of that had to do with just Shaq's popularity, but I do wish that it went to a better designed game show. And not only did the show get canceled, the studio reportedly owed Shaq and Gina $500,000 each because the studio pre-funded the show in return for a share of ABC's advertising and product placement sales. So it looks like the studio bet on the show being a huge financial success, and it didn't work out, even though it was a most watched summer series premiere. Since a lot of people reportedly watch this show, I can see it coming back in some way in the future, but I hope in that same...
Dude, it's not. It's done. It's done. And also...
future, we can iron out some of the small problems that I have with it. Overall, I think it's too slow.
Bro, you literally said Shaq and Gina didn't get their money. What about the contestants? The people that are the star, the heart and soul of the actual show that produced the content. We didn't get paid, bro. Come on. It's like I think you literally just read the headline and you didn't actually read what was written about what was truly substantial and significant about these articles. Again, he really didn't do enough. He didn't do the show its justice. And I hope to show another video and talk a little bit more about that.
Too flat and too awkward in its current state. Thank you guys for watching the end of the video. Feel free to like, comment.
Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna end it there. Yeah, I mean, you heard me. Thank you for promoting the show, for bringing attention to it. I think it was a little interesting that you like edited your title. You lambasted Shaq initially and said Shaq's Game Show was an absolute disaster, and then kind of took a step back and you're like, oh, it didn't go as planned. I think that's an interesting... I'm curious about that. I'm actually curious, like, why you did that. I think, like, calling Gina, a racist and everything, and I thought that was an interesting choice because it's just, like, yeah, that might be true, but that's just not germane to what we're talking about. You're talking about Lucky 13 as a game show. We're not talking about Shaq's other whatever things or Gina whatever things. We're talking about, let's focus on what do you think of it as a game show. And so, I was treated very fairly, and I'm happy about what happened. It did take a while for me to get paid, but yeah, I think that will just about do it for my thoughts. I think overall, yeah, it didn't live up to expectations, and I think with the major complaints is the pacing issue for sure, and there were times where Gene and Shaq didn't didn't jive, but I think on my episodes they actually did a decent job, and I think I tried to, yeah, look, I tried to do there, and he didn't even read it. Like, he read this from a person that was a seat filler. Yeah. I'm not salty at all. Just kidding, guys. Thanks for watching.